here. Now, Calvinists are really bad with this one. Here's a big example of where they inject context and they have no business doing it. John 6:44, the very famous Calvinist supposed proof text. No man can, notice that word, no man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him, and I will raise him up the last day. Now in John 6:44, Calvinists place all the emphasis on the word draw. They will cite definitions galore, but with complete disregard for the context within the sentence structure itself. So I've seen Calvinists do this. They show you pictures. Now the word draw means to be pulled and compelled against one's will, like they were dragged into the courtroom and all this kind of stuff. So they place the emphasis on draw. The problem is that the sentence structure, draw, is not a decisive word. It's an informative word. We'll say, what do you mean by that? Once the action, forget what the action could be draw, it could be pick your nose, it could be build a table, it could be string a guitar, whatever it is. The end result is that the man can come. You see that word can? Now if you were to take the word can out and just add an S to the word come, no man comes to me except the Father which sent me draw him, and I will raise him up the last day. That's what Calvinists believe. But that's not what the verse says. Now, if you quote it that way to them, they can't tell you what's wrong with it. But the word can is ability. No man can come to me. That is the operative phrase in the verse. Once the action is done, except the Father which sent me strings his guitar, or builds him a table, or picks his nose, whatever you want to put there, it doesn't matter, because the result of it is can come. And when I say it doesn't matter, I'm not really saying it doesn't. What I'm saying is that no matter what you do with the definition of that, you can define the word draw as strong as you want from now until the cows come home, and it's never going to be anything other than can come. In other words, you have the ability to come. Nothing is making them, nobody is being forced to come. Well, the definition of the word draw means, yes, but in the context, the result of the application of that action is can come. Nothing any stronger than the ability to come. Now I've even diagrammed the sentence. I've showed this in other videos. You have an exception clause, and you get the exception clause, except the Father who sent me draw him, and that's supposed to override the main part of the sentence. And the main part of the sentence is 3 words. Man can come. That's all there is to it. So once the exception clause is applied, the result is that they can come. So that is a case where Calvinists take the definition of the word draw and they inject it in there to try to overturn the meaning, like the stronger draw must make people come to Christ, right? Not in that context, it doesn't. Doesn't matter what that word was. Doesn't matter if you had draw or, gagged him and tied him to a chair and put him on a wheel, put him in a wheelchair and pushed him. At the end result, it is can come. That's what the verse says. So they try to override the context and the meaning of the passage by emphasizing the definition of one of the words implied. So the word draw is just telling you what action God does. It's not telling you. And that's what I mean when I say it's informative. It's just telling you which action is used. So it's informing you what action results in can come. It is not a decisive action. It does not force the person to come. It's not the decisive word. Can come is the end state of the sentence. Can come. It has, in other words, have the ability to come. Now, by the time you get to John 12:32, it creates a problem for them. Because in John 12:32 it says, will draw all men to me. Well, now if draw is such this strong word that you can't resist it, well, now you have universalism. So we know Calvinists aren't universalists, and they know they're not universalists. Well, if you're E.W. Bullinger, you're a Calvinist and a universalist. But most Calvinists aren't universalists. And so now they just died on the wrong hill on the word draw back in 644. So by the time they get to 12:32, that just say, well, so if you're a Bible believer, you can draw all men, but that only makes it so they can come. They have the ability to come. And we know that they don't. So even though they can come, we know they don't. No universalism there. But the Calvinist has a universalism problem. They're the real ones with a universalism problem because they believe in irresistible grace, and all the passages with all, every, or world conflict with them, not us. So then they have to turn their attention from building up the word draw. Now they have to tear down the word all. See, if you're a Calvinist, God is an absolute retarded imbecile who cannot use the words all, every, or world in a way that ever means what they say. God can't do that if you're a Calvinist. God needs the Calvinist's help, you see, because God is an imbecile who can't use those words. And without the Calvinist's help, God would be an ineffective communicator. So we need the Calvinist to come along and show us that this word God inspired to be here, pas, does not mean pas here. And well, it means all without distinction. Not in this case, it doesn't. It gets to the point where if there are certain things God cannot say if you're a Calvinist. If God really was trying to say that he will draw all, really meaning all, men to me, if Jesus was saying that, there's no way Jesus could say that a Calvinist would believe it. You know what that tells me? Scripture isn't the Calvinist authority. Something else is. When there's no way Jesus can use the word all that ever really means all, how would he say it if it did? What if it really did mean all without exception? What would it say then? Well, if you ask me, it would say that. That's what it would say. But it can't mean that to a Calvinist, because a Calvinist has meaning determined elsewhere in a priori framework of interpretation, a system outside Scripture, and Scripture is held subject to that. God is held subject to that, and God cannot speak straight without their help. That's their system.